So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Entrepreneurial Lunch and Learn offered by the Lawrence and Phil Center for Entrepreneurship at Baruch College. I'm Gary L. Smalls, the program coordinator of the Phil Center. The Phil Center for Entrepreneurship is a multifaceted division at Baruch College offering free services and programs for the entrepreneurial community. Today's Lunch and Learn webinar is presented today by entrepreneurs Sarah and Annie Park. Sarah and Annie are the founders of Sarah's Handmade Ice Cream and Treats. The mother-daughter team has opened 2 ice cream shops in Maryland after Sarah retired in 2018. And in fiscal year 2022, they made $2 million in sales. With the commitment to community and quality, they are embarking on their 3rd shop in 2024. So, thank you so much for being here with us, Sarah and Annie. Please feel free to tell our audience a little bit more about you before you get started.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'm absolutely honored and humbled and grateful to be here with you today. So as Gary already introduced us a little bit, so we have Sarah's Handmade Ice Cream, which is named after my mother, Sarah. She's actually attending to the shop right now. So hopefully she'll hop on for the questions and such, but I'm here to just give you a little bit more background and share a little bit of the knowledge that we have learned over our journey so far. But we're still learning every day, and I still consider our business at its infancy. So if I'm very new to this as well, and I'm here to share any challenges or any headaches that you might be having. If we can all put our brains together and strategize, I always love to do that. I still reach out to a lot of my networks for the issues that I'm having as well. So with my story, I'd want to just take you back a little bit and start talking about a little bit of the beginning steps as to how we got to where we are today. And of course, it's still a time filled with uncertainty and risk and questions and doubts. So bear with me and feel free to hop in and ask any questions as we go through. So the very first thing I'd like to do is walk you through our shop. And it's hard to do that just by talking. So I have a couple videos for you. So I'm going to share with you a video to introduce you to our shop. Okay.
My name is Annie Park, and I own Sarah's Handmade Ice Cream with my mom, Sarah Park, in Bethesda, Maryland. I think ice cream is a very happy business. A lot of the families that come in, a lot of children, they're very excited to be at our shop. The smiling faces and the joy that we see with a simple ice cream cone is probably the best part of my job. Scooping alongside our team and interacting with them on a day-to-day basis, you really get to know them as more than just students or employees. I really see them as my mentees. And I always tell them that your work here and your time here might just seem like an hourly job, but in it, I want you to take away something greater. How do you thrive in a workplace? How do you become the valuable team member that goes beyond your job description? So within 40 different flavors, we always offer something for everyone in the family. So from our vegan ice creams, our pup cups for dogs, the fun part is that we are always inspired by seasonal ingredients. So a lot of our customers find it very fun to come in and try the seasonal flavors. The reason we call it Sarah's Handmade and not homemade is because in every single flavor, whatever ingredients that it gets, we bake everything here, we chop everything here, so our ice cream is the freshest possible. We would love to scoop for you and your family, so come check us out and all of our seasonally inspired flavors made on site daily.
Alrighty. So that was just a little welcome into our shop so you can understand and get the feel for what it's like to be inside Sarah's Handmade Ice Cream. So we filmed this at our second shop because our first shop where we first started is a very small mom and pops. I'm not even sure if we can fit more than 3 families in the shop because of how small it is. So at our second shop, we decided, hey, let's have a little bit more space for families to sit down. And one of the things I'll talk about in a little bit is we have books. And the first we had books because I was a literacy teacher in Baltimore. I did Teach for America and taught literacy at a public school in Baltimore, Maryland. And I just understood the importance of books. And my mom was also a journalist back in Korea. So she's always emphasized the importance of books. So everything about Sayers Handmade, and I'll go into a little more detail about this, it's a piece of what matters to us, and that includes books. So when we first opened the second shop and then we had a little bit more space, I thought, why don't we have books available? So if grandparents are coming in with kids, or if parents are coming in with kids, they have something more than just ice cream to spend their time on. And as soon as I know it, people are asking, like, can we buy these books? We love these books. And these are books from my own collection when I was a teacher. And I thought of it, I'm like, I don't really want to sell these books for profit. So we started selling these books and partnered with our local National Institute of Health. They have their own children's hospital, Children's Inn, and it's for families who have undiagnosed conditions, or they have such a rare condition that they need to research more. So they live there at the hospital and they make it into a home. And we just donate all of our book sales to NIH Children's Inn. So we have local donations from authors out of the area, and they come and sign it. They have read alouds. So it's really blossomed into something that's more than just ice cream at Sayers Handmade Ice Cream. So, and I digress a little bit because I wanted to share with you how we got here, what was the beginning of Sayers Handmade Ice Cream. So here is another video that I'd like to share with you to tell you a little bit more about our beginnings. Here we go.
I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and I moved to the States when I was 9 years old with my mom. So we came here with 2 luggage, and we walked into our apartment building, which was completely empty, not even toilet paper in there. That empty apartment still is a very much of a visual reminder of where we started in the States. So music was something that I had carried on since I was in Korea. I grew up playing the piano. When I came over to the States, my mom said, you got to pick an instrument that's cheaper because we cannot buy a piano right now. I definitely got that taste of entrepreneurship when I was at the Harvard iLab, attending a lot of the events that they had, speaking with a lot of the founders of new startups and watching all these pitching competitions. And that's what really drove me into, I think I want to be an entrepreneur too. I just don't know where to start.
Alrighty. So we are very much of an immigrant single mother family household. And so when we first came to America, my mom worked 3-4 jobs sometimes, and this was just based out of the need for financial stability. And I think we lived a very much of a typical immigrant life story. And she really focused on education and said, you really have to focus on your education in order to have the opportunities you want to have in this new society that we're living in. So after attending Boston College, I decided to go into Teach for America, where I taught literacy. And from there, I wanted to delve more into the education policy, the bigger pictures that shape the current status of our public education. And so I applied to the Harvard School of Education, where I studied education policy and management. But my program was all about, learn the laws, learn the policy, learn the public policies, and have some management skills. It's called education policy and management. So I started taking classes all across Harvard. So it led me to the business school, the law school, to the government school. And one of the things that really caught my eye early on was the Harvard Innovation Lab. And this is kind of similar to what you guys are doing right now. It's just a center where they give you a lot of resources and workshops to learn more about what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So we all have this in common. I think we're all here because we're interested in entrepreneurship. And for me, entrepreneurship was this grand, big idea, global idea that's going to change the world. So hearing all these pitching competitions, I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, how am I going to go into this world, I don't have anything that I feel like it could be this grand of an idea that'll change and become the next Uber. So while I'm attending all these events and talking to these founders, I think entrepreneurship seemed kind of foreign to me. I knew that I always wanted to do it, but I just didn't know how to get started. But again, I think nothing was wasted because it planted a lot of ideas and I guess the structure and how to go about fundraising. What are the important steps of an entrepreneurship at its infancy? So I learned a lot about that. But then reality hits once you graduate and you're saying, okay, I need to make money. I can't forever like be living in a student dorm, and I'm graduating. So that's when I decided to work for University of Virginia's education policy team, where we thought a lot about teacher effectiveness. How do we train the teachers? What are the ways that we can measure teacher effectiveness? So I was very much like in the deep world of data and numbers and collecting data. And from there, I decided this wasn't the world for me. I don't want to be in this theory related. I actually miss teaching. I miss the community. I miss the in-person interactions. So I took on a job that was remote at the time, and this is before COVID. And this was a dream that I wanted because it would allow me to travel. So I took on that short-term job after UVA, and I'm traveling all over Southeast Asia. And my mom calls me. It was right before 2019, the new year. And it was in December, I think it was after Christmas. She was asking, I'm getting really tired because I'm bored. She had just retired earlier in 2018 and was doing all these things to spend her time in her retirement. She was gardening a lot, she was cooking a lot, and she started making ice cream, which had always been her hobby when I was younger. And of course, being a single mother, like having all these jobs, she wasn't able to indulge in these hobbies that she used to have. So as soon as she retired and she sold her small business, which was a deli inside of an office building, um, she started making ice cream and I wasn't home. So she would be passing out ice cream to all of our neighbors. And if one of our neighborhood kids were having a birthday, she'd be like, "Oh, I'll make you your flavor. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?" So she just enjoyed it so much. And then people started telling her, like your ice cream is not just a typical homemade ice cream. Like you have something that, I'd pay money for. You should think about opening up your own business. And this was such a coincidence. There was a local ice cream shop in our neighborhood that had been there since like the 60s. And they never made their own ice cream, but they bought ice cream from like Hershey's, for example, or Turkey Hill, and they sold ice cream. So everybody knew that place as a small ice cream shop, and they were going out of business. They were ready to sell their business. And people were like, "Oh, we don't want this to turn into some other shop that it's no longer going to be this neighborhood like dessert shop. Like you should take over and make ice cream there. It'll be fun for you. You're doing it anyway." So my mom's telling me this over the phone, and I'm like, okay, like I see that you have a need to do something and you're not ready to be retired. You have way too much energy. So she says, I can make the ice cream, but I'm going to need you to come and help me start the business aspect. So, as someone who with a remote job traveling around the world, I'm like, okay, like I can come back for a few months and like have this be our project together. So I come back into the States in January of 2019 and we buy out the shop, and we did the whole renovation ourselves. We had a little bit of help from contractors, sure. But it really came down to, we're going out to IKEA and buying all the little things that we need for this commercial shop. Again, we've never really like done it ourselves before. And my mom's had a deli where she bought out the deli and ran it just like the previous owners did. So this was a new experience for us. It was really fun actually, to make the menu, to set up our products, thinking about all the flavors that we're going to actually display for the customers. So we arrive at 40 different flavors because we can't decide how many we want to have. So we don't know any other ice cream shop that's making 40 different flavors, and we're making those flavors in-house. So my mom's making them all from scratch. She's in the back in the kitchen making ice cream. I'm in the front, like scooping for the customers, interacting with them. And as soon as you know it, like on our grand opening, we had lines out the door all day long where we couldn't even keep up with the demand. And these are the people that my mom had been serving ice cream to. These are the neighborhood kids and their friends and their families and their friends. So people are in that neighborhood is really supporting the work that we're doing. And they're just so happy for us to be there. And I realized this power of like connection and community. And so I want to share with you a little bit more about our team and give you a little more visual about how we make the ice cream and what it looks like on a day-to-day basis at the shop. So here we go. Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to hop over to 4.
That's when my mom called me and said, hey, like, I think I'm going to start up a new business because I'm tired of being retired. To be honest, at first I was like, ice cream shop? Like, why are you going back into small business? You sold that first business because you were so tired of being a business owner all the time. And it took a while for me to get there to realize, like, I want to dive into this 100%. The word of mouth in that community is amazing. All of our neighbors showed up, their friends and their family all showed up. And we saw this long line starting at 11 a.m. when we opened. And that line did not die down until we closed at 9 p.m. that day. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, now we have to make ice cream overnight because now we don't have anything for tomorrow. I think we went home at like 3 a.m. and then came back to open the shop at like 9 a.m. And so my goal is to keep expanding Sarah's Handmade as a recognized ice cream brand in the neighborhood.
Ice cream is super good.
What's your favorite flavor here?
Mint.
I think we can definitely pursue our 3rd shop, our 4th shop, 5th shop in the area and just become the area's known ice cream as the top quality ice cream that we serve and not lose our touch with the community. It's going to be 8:47.
Of course, we had a little conflicting time, of course, because I never worked with her. 리브로 가면 리브로드가 좀 문제야, 이게.
리브로드는 new customer도 훨씬 맞아.
But working together means you have to cooperate each other. It was not easy because I'm a morning person. She is like a night person. I just want her to come early, start doing something together, but she was like more laid back in the morning. But now we realize that who has a strength to do what.
She's very much in charge of the quality of our products and the production. Like I always say, I'm the HR director and she's the head of product. But one layer is going to be more than enough because you have a ton of icing on here. So we can go ahead and just scrape this off. I still call my employees like my kids as if they're my classroom students because I think I have a very mentorship like instead of a boss relationship with them. You reach? That's okay.
Annie's teaching them SAT.
I edit college essays for them all the time. I write recommendation letters.
Recommendation letter, many of them, right?
Yeah.
That's a very, I think, impressive.
When it starts to fog, that means we opened it up for too long. I have my seniors now who are basically my managers on duty and they don't need anyone else to be there with them. I'm just extremely proud of them to see that from I've never had a job. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I feel awkward greeting customers. And then you see them flourish into these shift supervisors. I'm not sure if this sounds cliche, but I want to be able to do it all. I want to be able to be a successful businesswoman who is connected with my employees and my customers. I want to be a good partner to my boyfriend. I also want to be a good daughter where I'm able to treat my mom to things and have her really this time retire.
I was divorced when she was 5 and I had to raise her my own. When I left Korea, there was 2 bags, 9 years old, young daughter. Ever since then, she was my companion. She's my life companion.
I never expected to work with my mom in this business. And I think you deserve this. I think every success that we've seen, no matter the obstacles and challenges you may have had, I think that it was all worth where we are now. One of the main lessons that I really have learned from my mom is her outlook and the attitude that shapes how you pursue happiness. Even when we had that empty apartment building, she was like, look what we can buy now and look at your room. Like, how do you want to decorate your room? You can't control other people, but how you see your world and how you fit in, and be brave. Go out there and take those risks because no one's going to do it for you.
Alrighty. Thank you guys for watching that with me. So some of the questions that I get a lot from other, even our customers, they're saying, you know, your product is excellent. But what do you think makes Sarah's Handmade special? Like, there are so many other ice cream shops around. Like, why is it that people keep coming back to your shops? And for me, there are a couple aspects to it. Like, yes, first, the product has to be amazing. We have local ingredients. We get local milk delivered to our shops every single day. We make our ice creams at each shop. So not even making it at one shop and bringing over to the other shop. Each shop caters to its own customers, even though they're only like 2 miles apart. Although we try to be as organic and local as possible with our ingredients, the reason we make ice cream fresh every day is because we think that we believe that it matters. We're also able to, because we're a small business, we can tweak the recipes, we can listen to our customers, we really do incorporate their feedback. So if a customer says, hey, what do you think about this flavor? We put it on the list of our potential ice cream flavor list, and we really consider it to be one of our new flavors, which is every month. So every month we rotate out the flavors so they stay as seasonal and relevant as possible. So that's the product aspect. But the second aspect is the way we approach our employees. So because I was a teacher, I honestly didn't know how to be a boss. I knew how to be a teacher. So for our employees, they start out with the onboarding. So once we always say our hiring rate is at 10% because we just have so many applications. And I think that comes from the fact that it's a cycle. When our employees are happy and they're happy to stay, we don't really have a need for a lot of employees. So we can only hire very little. And as that pattern started to grow, we also have a high retention rate, which means even when our high school students go off to college, they're back in the summer. So we get them back for their freshman, sophomore year when they're back home. We always also joke about how we have this one employee who went to grad school, secured a job in banking, and came back to us to work for that summer right before she started her job. And I was like, what, Lauren, why? Like, you could be going out there, you could be a bartender, you could be making like triple the money we pay you. And she said, well, it's really not about the money, it's the community here. And that really led me to think about what it means to provide that community. So my skill set were to foster this culture of learning in a safe environment where you're collaborating with others. And so we thought about like, well, how do I make this into a system where I'm incentivizing this type of collaboration? How do I develop my my team members? So we call them the ambassadors. Our ambassadors are the student or the younger, less experienced, I want an hourly job. So that track is our ambassadors track. Our other track, we call the operations track. And for my operations track, my goal for them is to become my managers. So they have to learn everything from upfront, from customers, all the way to products. So I'm training them on how to make the ice cream. So my mom takes over. So with our ambassadors, one of the biggest problem with our ambassadors is the fact that we were training them and they were leaving within a year or two. So how do we think about like, how do I make sure that the learning happens as quickly as possible? And how do I incentivize them to come back to us whenever they can? So being the teacher and putting my teacher hat on, I've created a whole curriculum. So it might not look like a textbook very pretty, but for me, the number one focus was to put this down on paper and have something there. So we have a handbook. Before even they're hired, they look at the handbook, and part of their interview process is to take this quiz based on the handbook. By the time they come in for the in-person orientation, where we show them in person how to do things and how to greet customers, what is the life cycle of the customer experience at Sarah's Handmade, we break down into the very smallest bit of like what good customer service at Sarah's Handmade is. Because if you just say, oh, be nice to the customer, if you're 16 and you've never had customer interactions before, you don't know what that's like. So we give them a lot of sentence starters. And these were all the skill sets that I learned as a teacher. And my mom always made fun of me. She's like, you treat this like it's your classroom. I'm like, yeah, and that's exactly how I see it. So all of our ambassadors, their goal is to become shift supervisors, which is basically my managers on duty. So I show them how to open the shop, to close the shop. They have ongoing quizzes. They may always make fun of me for this. They're like, Annie, like this feels like school sometimes. I'm like, well, I want you to grow into these roles, and the only way I know how is to provide the opportunity for you to like check for your own understanding. I mean, they can take it as many times as they want. And so by the time they become shift supervisors, they have so much knowledge and they have so much ownership because they were able to grow into those positions. We never hire outside of our team, which means whether it's ambassador track, whether it's operations track, everybody starts at the same level. So ambassadors, they grow into be senior ambassadors and shift supervisors, and their operations team, they come in as operations associates and they grow into the seniors, and then they become assistant managers and then the manager's position. And with our team, we had to think about what are the things that we have to incentivize. So our ambassadors team, they don't want the same things as our operations team does. Operations team, for us, it was like, well, they have to make a living wage. My mom, from her own experience, she's like, I don't want these people who work full time for us to have to go out and get a second and a third job. So we don't have a marketing budget. We put it back into our employee pool where we give them the health benefits, the vision benefits, the paid time off program. And our manager levels, we give them a revenue sharing model. So they have a lot of ownership into what it means to be part of Sayers Handmade. So throughout the year, you know, on top of their base salary, their bonus comes from our sales itself. Now for ambassadors, it looks very different. They're under their parents' health insurance. These things don't matter as much to them. Of course, like money matters. So our ambassadors are getting paid $18 an hour, which I think is a lot higher than our local average hourly rate. But for me, we're getting the best talent. So for me, it's worth putting that, a couple extra dollars into their bank account per hour. And then I thought about what does it mean to work at Sayers Handmade? They're not doing this just for money. And for me, that was that opportunity to grow. They want the leadership of experience. They want something that can translate into their next role. So we have a leadership team, which is the group of shift supervisors, where we have monthly seminars where we talk about what it means to be a leader in this role and what are the soft skills that we can develop together as a team. And then the second thing was, how do I develop this culture of positiveness, this culture of support? And that was nothing more than like what I used to do in a classroom setting, where you have to create a safe environment. So we have shift supervisors who are now working with the new trainees, and we incentivize our shift supervisors to think about what are some struggles that you've experienced yourself. And if we have a exit ticket, so we have our trainees, once they're exiting their training program, we ask them straight up, like, who has been the most helpful for your learning and why? And based on that question, our shift supervisors are now getting bonuses if their name comes up on that in that box. We have some of the things that matter the most to our ambassadors is going off to college. So as someone who's had a lot of college experience and admissions office, we have monthly writing seminars where I look at everyone's essays. I look at their application as a package, and if they need SAT help, like, I'm there to help them. And so this came from, what can I provide to my employees so that they're getting more than just exchange of like, here's money, you come work for me, and you scoop customers. So we're creating this like culture outside of your work hours that has really strengthened just the work environment for everybody, where everyone is happy to come to work. And that translates directly to how we treat our customers. So it elevates our customers experience as well. Sorry, I'm going to check this chat because I think there's a couple. Okay, so we're going to begin the Q&A soon. And the last thing I wanted to share, I talked a little bit more about books and community giving. So outside of our employees, which is, I consider them the most direct way of our community, the second level to that is our customers and their community. So building these customer relationships, sure, they're very important individually, but as an organization, as a company in the greater Bethesda area, we support NIH Children's Inn through book donations, and we also support their events through ice cream donations as well. We do the turkey chase, which is a YMCA event every year. On Thanksgiving morning, we all do the 10K run. And so we're one of the sponsors for that. But I think it's responding to things that matter to your community. So for example, when COVID hit, my mom and I are sitting in our ice cream shop. We're like, okay, what can we do to like show that we care? I think everybody felt a little helpless at the time. And for us, it was, we got all this ice cream. Let's just go and like donate a bunch of scoops to the local hospitals where the frontline workers are there. And when people found out about it, our customers were calling us like, well, how do we support you in this? So we started a scoop matching program. So we donated almost 1,000 scoops because now we had created a program where if a customer donates a scoop, we'll match a scoop and we'll go ahead and donate that. When the Ukraine war started, we just donated 25% of all of our weekly sales to support select organizations that would support the children, that would support the World Kitchen. And our customers, like, they're happy to eat ice cream, but I think when you give them a reason behind just going to an ice cream shop, it makes the consumers think a little bit more carefully about their selection as to who they're supporting. And so we're really diving into what it means to be a community-centered business here. And so in many different ways, I'm going to actually cut it a little short. I think in many aspects, I think Sarah's Handmade is a very unorthodox story as to how business is run. But one thing that I'm the most proud of, and I think my mom agrees with this, is that it's so true to who we are. We're supporting the causes that we care about as individuals. We take care of our team the way that we know how, as a teacher, as a mom. And I think as long as you're authentic to yourself, no one can tell you that you're doing something wrong. So if as you're thinking about your entrepreneurship journey, yes, profit matters, yes, sales matter, but at the end of the day, I think the way you run your company has to be true to who you are, and that's going to be the ingredient for success. So I will go ahead and open up for Q&A.
Awesome.
And I'll answer some.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much. I have so many questions, and there's some questions that's coming in the chat. Once again, anyone, if you have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A or the chat, whichever is easier for you. The one thing I noticed was how often we think about just the bottom line, right? And people may not think about here like some hard strategies and crazy no, like you were really like, listen, I heard a lot about community building. Even before you guys had an actual brick and mortar, your mom is giving out ice cream just to her neighbors. So, a lot of times when we talk about product testing and validation, that's essentially product testing and validation right there on a low level. And I find it, and one of the things that I found so interesting about you and why I wanted to have you guys here is because you take something that you can get ice cream in so many different ways. You can go to your supermarket. There's so many different brands, but yeah, you guys were able to carve out a space for yourselves. And you talked about product, how you treat your employees, culture, and community, but you guys were able to carve out a space for yourself in a world full of other options. So my first question would be, what would be your advice for someone who may have a passion for something that seems like the market is just flooded, but they really are passionate about it? How would you encourage them to still approach it and not be afraid of what's out there?
That's a really great question. And that's why when my mom first said, hey, I want to open up an ice cream shop, will you help me? I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's Baskin Robbins around the corner. There's Janny's ice cream. Like, why are we starting an ice cream business? And for me, I think the conviction kind of came from how many people we had served our ice cream to just in our neighborhood. And this was our MVP. Like, this was our minimally viable product. Like, you take the least amount of risk and you just test it out. So I mean, if you can, I think instead of going into it with the business mindset of, oh, I'm going to monetize this, I think it's about, let me get some feedback from the people around me in the risk-free environment as possible, to see how people respond and be flexible. If they tell you, hey, this was good, but this was bad, like, think really carefully about those critical comments, because they're only giving those comments to you so that you can improve upon your ideation. So while we could have gone to a different direction of like, oh, let's start an ice cream truck, we were in a really I do think this was sort of a lucky situation where a local ice cream shop was going out of business, and everybody in our neighborhood kind of rallied around us taking over that ice cream shop. And that was only possible because my mom had been serving her ice cream almost every single day throughout the whole entire year that she was retired. And within that, she was taking flavor suggestions. Hey, your birthday's coming up. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? And it really challenged her to think outside of her comfort zone. Like, she was making the chocolate, vanilla, the basic stuff, and then people are kind of throwing things at her. And I think she had a lot of fun, sure, but it was also a challenge to like source the right ingredients, to think about how to improve upon a product that she might not have thought of in the first place. So.
Awesome. The next question is, what tangible tactics and strategies do you use to develop good working synergy between you and your mom? Wow, that was actually one of the questions I was thinking about.
We get this question a lot because I don't think you see a lot of family members working so closely together. And like she said in the video, like it wasn't easy at first. I mean, yeah, I've not lived with her since I graduated from high school. So we're these two adults now trying to work together in a business that forces you to work so closely. So in the beginning, it was hard to like find the right boundaries. Like I have something that I think would work. She has her own ideas from running her own business. And her deli was very much of like one man show. Like she was in the kitchen, she was dealing with the customers. It was a very much like I do it all. So to have to think about like how to divide up the roles, it was a little different for us. And for me, I think the number one thing was you have to set boundaries based on your strength. So with product and quality, I just leave that to her. I close the kitchen door and say, you go for this. I trust you fully. And for her, it was, your teacher background, like your hiring to onboarding to teaching how to treat our customers, that's all you. So I started thinking about like my own HR skills, setting up my own system, setting up the ambassador versus operations track, really thinking about like structurally, how are we going to grow as a business, setting up the manuals, AKA the curriculum that I talk about. And second, I think separating that time between like, this is going to be our business time, this is when we're partners, and versus like, this is our family time. Let's just enjoy like our family time without the stress of like thinking about Sarah's Handmade. Because for the first, like, I want to say like 6 months or so, we only talked about Sarah's Handmade ice cream. So every single conversation we had was based on the business, and like, and I think that's reasonable because we were such at a young phase. But going forward, we started to say, okay, let's go on like, let's just go shopping and just focus on having a good mother and daughter time. And I can talk about my personal issues. You can talk about your stuff and what's going on in your life, and separate the business out of it.
So good. That was, I think that's probably top 5 questions you get all the time, because at the end of the day, that's your mom, right? And
Yes.
from seeing the videos and the interviews, you guys, have a great relationship, and you guys, migrating here from Korea, and right. And you guys are each other's like partners in life and in business, right? So it can easily go left if there's no boundaries, right? The relationship can get strained because if there's no boundaries. So I'm glad you guys shared that, and I'm glad the fact that you talked about building your team. So before you built out the team, you and your mom are the team, and then being able to separate roles from that. And I think that's so important, because a lot of our students who are on this call, or anyone's on this call, is they're probably a one-man show or one-person show, who can benefit from a team, but's not really sure how to put it together, right? And how you talked about the division of skills and getting out the way, I think was so important. So much so, the next question says, I love your inclusion of caring for your employees and not just for them working for you. What were some of the challenges you have faced at the beginning of your company development?
So in terms of building our team, we didn't have one. Like Gary said, it was just my mom in the back making ice cream and me in the front. And originally the plan was maybe she'll make ice cream like once or twice a week and then we'll sell it. But quickly we found out she was making ice cream 24/7 in the kitchen because of the demand that we had. And we're so grateful. But in the front, I'm here alone, scooping for the customers, taking orders, checking them out, trying to have a conversation, but then there's like another person waiting. So I'm like, okay, I definitely need like more energy and more people in here. So as high school students were coming in, they're like, oh, this looks different than before. Like, what is this now? So I'm explaining to them that now it's called Sarah's Handmade Ice Cream. And they're like, oh, how do we apply for a job? So within the first week of opening, I had to think about, well, how do I give them the application out? So for the very first group of our ambassadors, as they were walking in asking for jobs, I was like, if you can start right now, like just get back here and just help me and just watch what I'm doing and just help me out. That's how our first pool of ambassadors really started. And as I was working with them, I mean, I'm spending 24/7. I'm at the shop from opening to close. So I'm able to have this in-person interaction with them. And I'm scheduling them through Google Calendar. Because we only had like 4 or 5 people to manage, I had them on Google Calendar. And as we started to grow, I'm thinking, how do I do this scheduling so that it's most efficient? How do I build up a communication channel so that my team can talk to each other? And instead of me repeating the same information 5 times, how do I send this information out so that everyone is on the same page? So there are a couple of things that, I mean, I can give you an examples of how I handle these challenges. One was a weekly email. Things that can kind of wait, but really summarize into an email. I started sending out weekly emails with all the new policies, information, things to watch out for. This is where we went left. And then we always end up with the shout out. So shout outs is something that I started in my classroom. Tell me something that you want to shout out in another person. We'll just put that in an email. So it always ends up with this like positive energy of like, we are a team together. And then the second thing is we had a WhatsApp group. Now we have different channels, but our WhatsApp group allowed us to communicate about our daily challenges. Hey, this is happening right now, like I'm having an issue, or hey, watch out for this is happening today. So we have a WhatsApp channel for the communications. Other things that I would say is we have this curriculum of like all the same information goes out to all of our ambassadors and operations team even before they're done with their training. They come into our shops at our training sessions knowing what questions to ask, because not only do I give them the full manual, like the curriculum, I also give them, this is the quiz that you will take to exit your training. So they preview the information that they need to know. So by the time they're coming in for their training sessions, they know the right questions to ask, and they understand with all the photos and the videos that I've included in the manual. I think they come in with much more knowledge than other small business, especially with the consumer goods industry, where you're kind of expected to just learn on the job. So I'd say those are some of the strategies I employ to handle these challenges.
Awesome. It's interesting because Andrew actually put that in the comments where he's like, such a robust approach to a small business. And I think which goes to my next question, I think it's so important that a lot of times we romanticize entrepreneurship and we don't realize how much technical and business acumen it takes to run a business, right? So someone might have a love for ice cream, but that's not enough, right? So I want you to speak to, especially being that many of our students are students and still in college, and because we are the Entrepreneurship Center, we celebrate and we invite innovation and ideas, but we are also on a college campus where students are pursuing degrees. So can you speak to how important and useful your work experience, as a teacher, which keeps coming back up, how important that was, and also how important was your education to helping you succeed in this role?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one thing I wanted to mention is that, my mom's had so many different roles, like in America. She was a journalist in Korea, and then she became a saleswoman. But here in America, when she came in, like she was working at another person's deli, like a church member's deli, and they just needed someone cashier. So my mom started there. Then she worked at Bloomingdale's as a cashier as well. She worked at a CVS pharmacy as like a tech assistant. So she's had many different jobs to just survive. And for me, also me becoming a teacher, I was really passionate about like inner city education. But within each role that we have, and I think this is something I learned from my mom, is that we try to kind of hack that position. So how do I become the best I can be in this role? So even as a student, you're taking these internships, you're going to these meetings, you're going to classes with professors who achieved at a highest level. Instead of viewing that as oh, I'm just gonna like pass my time here and like, get the passing grade and then move on. I think the attitude of like, I'm really gonna maximize my time here and try to gain as much information here so that I can use it for my own benefit should really changes the way that you become a student, that you become a bartender or a barista. And I was a Starbucks barista when I was in high school. And still to this day, I tell my kids as in my employees, I tell them, all these things that I'm doing, it's not necessarily from my grad school where I had to pay a lot of money to go, but this comes from me working as a barista at Starbucks. The way that I interact with my customers, that comes from my Starbucks and that comes from the restaurant jobs that I've had. And even like sweeping and mopping, I'm having to teach my ambassadors how to do that. They've never done it before at home. And I'm telling them like, you think this is a part-time job, but you don't, there's so much that you're learning from this that I don't want you to take this as a like a time wasted. Some of my employees, they're really working because they need to be able to afford their lifestyle, or like they don't have as much support from their parents. And so for me, the most important lesson that I share with them is that this is gonna be the start of your next role, which is gonna continue to build. So there is no irrelevant experience, in my opinion. Like I look back on not just my teaching background, but everything from my I was a babysitter, I was a Starbucks barista. I look back on all these experiences and I'm like, these are all connected. I've taken something from each of these roles, and same with my mom. That's now culminated into this, now me being the employer and thinking about how do I make this business flourish. And for me, that's invest into your own team. So yeah.
So good. That's such a great answer, because I think sometimes as students, if you don't get that dream internship as you're in school, or that dream job, whatever that dream is for you, it feels like a waste of time. And like you, I look back at all the jobs I've had and I can see it's almost like Batman and his utility belt, right? He has a whole bunch of stuff on his belt. He don't use everything at the same time, but every internship, every job you've had prepares you for the next thing. And if you can see the value in that opportunity, even if it's mundane, I think there's value to how you will approach your business in the future.
Definitely.
So good. There was a very specific question, a business question. I believe Muhammad asked it. It was about percentages. So how do you split your revenues across payroll, ingredients, staffing? Like, what's the split?
I don't think it's necessarily like a specific split. I don't look at it from the top down approach of like, oh, I'm going to spend, 40% on payroll and 20% on. That's not how our business works. I think we go the other way around, where we say, okay, what do we need this week? Because historically, it's saying that we're going to do this much sales. How many people do we need to staff that as I plan for the next week's coming up? And I guess this is a blessing that I didn't have to go back and say, we need to cut staffing, like we're performing at a low level. So I think this is a tough question for me to answer, because I don't necessarily work from like budgeting that wise. I always review my budgets, and whenever we have an extra, like in the summer, so we do pretty well. But our employees work really, really hard. Like even though I'm using like 5 times as much payroll, when you look at the percentage wise, like it still works out because we're doing that much more in revenue. So I think this is a question that I don't have a direct answer for.
It's cool because it changes it highlights that it doesn't have to be one way, right? So, oh yeah. Okay. How can we utilize those same data skills in year one of our own business? So, for those who might have missed it, or even before we actually went live, you were talking about how useful data has been for the business. So, can you share some of the either there's tools, preferred tools, or things that help you to be able to look at the data for your decision making?
For sure. So with any like POS system, like if you're in the consumer goods, especially, there's so many options out there. There's Clover, there's Square, there's so many other options that you can use. For me, I actually chose to go with Square, even though they had higher fees. And this was because I valued the data that they were providing more so than just being able to accept credit cards. So a lot of the credit card processing companies, they charge you like a processing fee so that you can accept credit cards, right? So that you pay a fee for that. Let's say you pay like 2% for that. 2% of your all the credit card sales, it goes back to that processing company. For me, I'm okay paying 3.5% or like double the amount, which sounds crazy to most business owners. But within that, you're gaining all the insights. Like I'm able to collect all the customer information, what they buy, how often they come, their emails, their phone numbers. So I can do my own text message marketing, which I do. I do my own email marketing, and I only do it like maybe once a month based on which flavors are launching. So within my email marketing, I make sure that one, I provide them an incentive, like here's a coupon, or like here is 50% off, or whatever it may be, free item, free topping. And then I give them an update on what we're doing as a company. So here's how we contributed to the community. There's always a community portion of it. And then there's always something about our new product or new services, new items, something to get them excited to come in. And then I always end up with the promotional aspect of like, oh, if you come in, like here's something. So our email read rate, like the open rate is very important for me, because if you think about like your spam folders and things that you like unsubscribe from, it's probably because you have no connection to that email. You're like, oh, they're just spamming me again. And I see that in so many different companies. And this is a corporate strategy. They just want to be in front of your face. They just want their name out there, the name recognition. Sure. But as a very small community focused business, for me, I want this communication with my customers. So I value the data set that I'm getting from Square, the fact that I can have this information, and now I'm able to utilize that. So with my email rates, I had a Square account executive who actually called me and said, how do you get your email rate to be so high? Like, I've never seen this many number of people like reading your emails. And then we can also see, I can match the coupon code to who came in. So I track everything that I do. And I think about, okay, what these people, 50% of the people that I sent out emails to came within the next 2 weeks of reading an email and bought the item that I was advertising. So being able to stay connected with that customer, for me, was worth investing into that data set. So that's just with customers. With my employees, I have them all integrated within the Square system. So when I'm scheduling them, I'm able to see like how many hours they worked last week. So what's the percentage of the hours that they worked? And then I'm also looking at what were the sales while they were working. So I can track this on an hourly basis. So I know at any given month, any given day, I can tell you what the pattern has been about our shop. So this starts year one. This is when we started, and my mom was like, oh, why don't we just use the same company that I used at the deli, and they only charge like 1.8%. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you don't have the same data powers that we're going to have if we start investing this day one. So the day one we open Sarah's Handmade for a soft opening, I have those customers' contacts, and they're still with us today. And we send out text message marketing. I only do this about once a month. Again, that rate is very important for me. I'm not trying to spam you. Every time I contact you, my customers now know to look forward to it, because they're like, oh, there's going to be a coupon. Oh, there's going to be new flavors. So I would say you start the same data skills in year one, day one, that you're going to use 5 years, 10 years later.
Wow, so good. So good, because your approach to this is high level. This is the same thing I'm pretty sure Baskin and Robin does, or any big, they know their numbers. And I have to say, it took me some time as a professional, as an entrepreneur, to embrace the numbers. Like, I'm more qualitative in my approach. So anything qualitative, I'm with. Quantitative is like somebody else can aggregate that information, just send it to me. But over the years, I'm seeing how anecdotes and the data together can help you to be successful. So I'm glad to hear from you as a small business owner who's really using data to make like major decisions. So as we close,
that's not to minimize that qualitative approach. I always say, I need to be at my shops on a day-to-day basis, because that connection with my employees and my customers can only exist if I'm there in person. I have a lot of like friends who are like, oh, why don't you just open up a bunch? Like, you can just like focus on growing your shop. And for me, I don't think we're there yet, because what makes our shops go around is the fact that I have this personal relationship with every single employee in my shop. And that, I think, is my next challenge. I'm thinking, once I open the third shop and I have plans for the fourth shop, I have a plan for an ice cream truck. How am I going to keep this, what I think is the ingredient of our connectivity, to remain, and the culture to remain, without me being there 24/7. So I'm now on to thinking about, like, how do I do this while expanding, while not losing the touch with the community and my employees and my team, and still grow.
Wow. That's actually a great way to end, but I want to also give you an opportunity to give that last gem or piece of advice that you think someone can benefit from before we wrap up.
I think I've already said this in so many ways, but if I could go back to my college years and I'm thinking, oh, I kind of want to, I'm interested in entrepreneurship, where do I start? I think whatever opportunity you're given today, whether it be at Starbucks, whether it be at McDonald's, I think there's always going to be somebody in that working environment that you will be learning from. And if you consider that learning as more than just a temporary event, you're gonna look back someday and say, hey, I took this from this job and that from this job, and that's made me into who I am today. You're developing your leadership skills, like develop those human skills, like the people skills to connect and to empathize. And that all together, at the end of the day, I always tell my kids too, I'm like, I'm in business, but really I think I'm in a people business. I'm here because I need to be successful with my team, but that also translates to how we communicate with our customers. So at the end of the day, it's a community. And that's something that I think started when I was very young, like babysitting.
Thank you so much, Annie. Thank your mom. I know she's right, literally at this moment, probably serving ice cream and making ice cream. So thank her too, for being with us. She was here with us, right, as we talk about the business. And we appreciate you just being with us during this time period. And thank you all for being with us. Thank you for your questions and your comments and your energy. Please be on the lookout for a follow-up email with today's recording. This is our last Lunch and Learn for the fall semester. So we hope to see you all next semester for spring 2024. Please be
and let's stay connected. So if you message us on Instagram, Sarah's Handmade Ice Cream, that's our handle. If you go to sarahshandmadeicecream.com or anything, I am that person behind all of these accounts. So I read every message, I read every email. So I'd love to stay connected.
Stay connected, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys in the spring. Have a good one.